What's going on, guys? How you doing? Beyond the Lead Stage Part 2 coming at you. Let's do this. Bam.
Once again, we're back at the Laura Secord Secondary School. We've got a great trio of guys here that call themselves Rush, and I think we'll let John, the drummer, introduce the rest of the guys to you right now.
Well, introducing on lead guitar and vocals, Alex Lifeson.
And vocals.
And on lead vocals and bass guitar,
Good job, Alex.
And sitting behind the drums here, myself, John Rutsey. Okay, we're going to see in this number if we get you to make a little noise along with us. Doesn't take too much. All you got to do is put your hands together like this.
The turning point came in 1971 when the drinking age was lowered to 18 from 21 in Ontario.
Oh.
As soon as the drinking age dropped, actually, to 18,
that is
it was right
deal.
at the time we turned 18.
Wow.
So we could finally start playing in bars, which were better paying, more serious gigs.
Wow.
So what happened is Yorkville got shut
wild.
down by 1970. They wanted to rid that area of hippies and the clubs as it shifted onto Yonge Street and down on Queen Street as well. And as soon as the drinking age went down in 71, it invited a whole different kind of music because a drinking crowd wants a different kind of entertainment than a listening crowd. We wanted something harder and heavier. So a whole new world grew.
The scene in Toronto was vibrant as far as live bands go. There are a ton of live venues. I went into a place called the Abbey Road Pub, which was on Queen Street, and saw Rush one night, and I remember watching them going, wow, there's something going on here.
We went from playing a couple of high school dances in the course of a month to playing 6 nights a week with matinees on Saturdays sometimes, and playing 4 or 5 40-minute sets. We started to get a little more experimental with music, and that was great because that's really where we learned our chops.
Gonna do a number called Garden Road
that much,
for you.
that often, for sure. That's not the same as practicing. But yet it's great practice. So that's cool. Is this a cover? What is this? He's playing a P-bass? Look at this guy.
Initially, I was trying to get them a record deal, and no one was willing to sign them. I couldn't get arrested, so it became obvious that I was going to have to come up with the money and do the record myself.
We looked for, I guess about 4 months trying to get a record deal on Rush in this country and couldn't get anyone interested at all. There was just no reaction. We were willing to literally give the album away if somebody would just make a commitment to promote it. Couldn't get that.
Part of the general attitude in Canada is, unfortunately, the people coming out to see you, not all of them, but quite a few of them go, well, they're a local band, how good can they be? And it's funny, you know, when other people from the States come out and they see these so-called local bands, they go, man, these guys are fantastic.
There was no one in Canada to sign you. There were no record companies here. They were outposts, really.
Right.
You had to get an American deal if you wanted to do anything.
Cleveland rocks on WMMS.
I was up in my office, and I was listening to the new music. We were deciding what we were going to play that week, and suddenly I get this thing from Canada. And I remember dropping the needle on what was the longest cut, because back in those days, in album rock, you were always looking for what was called bathroom songs. And a bathroom song was something that if you did have to answer the call of nature, the record wouldn't run out. And then I start listening to the song, and I'm just, oh my God. This is a perfect record for Cleveland. Back then, it was a factory town. The song Working Man.
Yeah.
Every listener in the audience felt like that.
Yeah, it's a great song.
phones light up immediately. When's the new Led Zeppelin album out? No, not a new Led Zeppelin album. Canadian band, Rush. Every time the record gets played, people are calling. Where can we get one? Where can we get one? We had this cult following going already.
June 1974, I was working at Mercury Records in Chicago. It was a Monday morning, and on my desk was an album. There's a note that comes along with it. It says here, this is the first album by a Canadian group called Rush, and that it's already selling in Cleveland, and they're looking for a deal in the United States. The artist and repertoire person who would normally listen was not in. So they took it to the least qualified guy, me. I put on the record and got blown away. I said, get the president of the company on the line. We should sign this band.
And he said, don't make a deal with anyone until we talk. And he loved the record, and he really wanted to sign us.
By the end of the day, we had worked out a deal, signing the band like within 8 hours of hearing it.
We went from getting this offer to getting an advance to buying equipment. Everything was happening very, very quickly. I don't think that John really felt comfortable with what was happening. You know, we talked about musical differences, and he was a much more straight-ahead rock kind of guy. He was more into Bad Company, whereas Ged and I were more into Yes and Genesis and Pink Floyd and bands like that. You know, if we'd stayed on the Toronto local circuit, we probably would have stayed together, and that would have been fine. But suddenly things were turning a page.
John was not a healthy boy. He had sugar diabetes. Of course, like any teenagers, they like to drink and whatever else. He was not taking care of himself. And I took Geddy and Alex aside and Ray, and I said, we have to replace John for his health. We can't put him out there on that tour, or we'll be bringing him home in a box. So I discussed it with John. Of course, he was heartbroken, but he understood. There was no saying that John wasn't doing his job. It wasn't for his ability to drum that he was let go. It was for health reasons.
It's like coming to the end of high school, and you're with all your friends in high school, and you think, oh yeah, we'll know each other forever. And then everybody just goes in their own direction, and you know, for the most part, you never see those people again. It was a big deal. We had an American contract. We were going to go to the States. We only had less than a month to find somebody and get them in shape for us to go on the road.
We needed a drummer. Let's put it like that.
Broken drum head.
I thought it would be good to start at the beginning.
Oh, how predictable.
The very beginning, where you were born, where you grew up.
Much of that I don't remember. I know, but I was born in we lived on the family farm near Higginsville, Ontario at the time, and went to the nearest hospital, which was in Hamilton, and moved to St. Catharines when I was about 4 or so. I had never been athletic. I never could play hockey. I skated on my ankles, which for a young Canadian kid, that's automatically like the hugest curse a young boy could have.
Well, he was, in those days, I used to say weird. He just read everything. He just read everything there was to read. He even had to learn to knit because he had to know how that was done.
It was horrible coming into high school once I got interested in rock bands and all that, and started to grow my hair a little over my ears and wear bell-bottoms and all that stuff. The taunting in the hallways and even physical abuse out in the smoking area and the constant misfit sense. For any kid, especially a sensitive one, just wears you down. So that's why drumming became an instrument of self-esteem for me. This was the first time I was admired for anything, and that doubled my fervor about playing drums.
Wow, young.
Fortunately, I was in a very serious band at the time called J.R. Flood. We practiced all weekdays, and then weekends we were playing high schools around Ontario or the Knights of Columbus halls.
looks like they're in
the
their 30s.
I was working behind the parts counter for my dad at the farm equipment dealers, and this white Corvette pulled up.
A white Corvette doesn't pull up in the farm equipment dealership that often. They came and asked if they could talk to Neil and take him out to lunch, and I could tell as Neil came back the rest of the afternoon that he was really troubled with something. He told me then that these guys were the managers of Rush, and they wanted Neil to come over and audition, and he said, "I don't know what to do, Dad." And I said, "Well, two things. First of all, we'll talk it over with your mother. But secondly, as far as I'm concerned, this is your passion. This is all you have wanted all your life." And I said, "I guess there'll always be a parts department here, so I think you've got to go for it."
So I borrowed my mom's Pinto, so perfect, and loaded my drums into that and drove up to Ajax.
So the car pulls up with this kind of gangly guy with really kind of short hair. My first impression was that he was kind of goofy. I remember thinking, God, he's not nearly cool enough to be in this band.
I had Rogers with two 18-inch bass drums and everything set up really high and kind of weird looking. And I was kind of weird looking.
And then he started playing them, and he pounded the crap out of those drums. I mean, he played like Keith Moon and John Bonham at the same time. And I was blown away. As soon as he started playing, he's playing these triplets, and he was so good.
I think it's very common for musicians, especially in your early years, to feel that you totally blew it. And I had that feeling. I could have played better, I should have played better, all that stuff. But they picked me.
Hey now, baby. Well, I like your smile. Won't you come and talk to me for a little while? Well, you're making me crazy, the way you roll them eyes. Won't you come and sit with me? I'll tell you all my lies.
It was like a tornado came and hit my life and swept it away. We had 2 weeks to prepare and to learn songs that I'd never heard before, and to gel a little bit as much as we could. The first show was going to be in front of 11,000 people at Pittsburgh Civic Arena, opening for Manfred Mann and Uriah Heep.
Found that the biggest rock audience was Midwest, and we gave Rush the perfect audience to come into. It was a great rock audience, you know, and they loved their rock music.
We had a dressing room that was just a small kind of room under the stands at the far end of the arena, away from the other dressing rooms.
We had this tour manager, Howard Ungerleider, who would come in from New York, and he was teaching us how to be professional. I remember Howard saying, well, you know, you can have booze or something, and they'll supply it for you. And we went, really? Okay, cool. I ordered like a little bottle of Southern Comfort, and I think Alex ordered Blue Nun wine or something like that. I remember taking a sip of this stuff, and it went straight to my head, and I was completely dizzy. And we hit the stage. By the time I kind of came to my senses, the set was over and we were off, and I had no idea how well we'd played.
My immediate thoughts were, God, he can sing high. Was my first thought. And Full It sounded just a three-piece. And Rush came out and nailed it. It was obvious that they were going to, you know, move up the ladder pretty quick.
Hey, baby, it's 7:45. I feel I'm in the mood. Hey, baby, the hour is late. I feel I've got to move.
It was huge. And this was the start of our tour. And it was America. Big, bold, beautiful America. We were so excited to be doing it.
Here are these three 20-year-old guys living a dream. I mean, it was a very exciting time. And we were working 11 days on, 1 day off, 9 days on, 1 day off. I mean, we were really working a lot and traveling all over the place.
The circuit was different back then. The money certainly wasn't as great, and you wanted to play 5 or 6 times a week. You could play markets like Johnson City, Tennessee, or Yakima, Washington. You would talk about how many shows in Iowa you were going to do.
Every day, and we would always share the driving, and everybody was sharing rooms. We had a room rotation schedule back then. It was kind of fun.
Traveling around in a rental car. It wasn't even a bus or a van or anything. Sleeping on your baggage. Now, you know, you'd be in traction for a month if you did a week traveling like we used to travel for months.
Yeah. right, there it is. Hey, Howard. We get to see Howard a bit. That's cool. Yeah. I don't see bands doing that now. Like, I don't know. It's just not like that anymore. Even when people tour now, like, often they'll like, I'm not talking about like major tours or anything like that. They'll just put the city. They won't put the, like, they used to put like the venue and the date and the city. And now they don't put the venue anymore. They just put the city and the date. And everything gets filled out like just before or whatever, which I noticed years ago that they started doing that people started doing that. And I think that's interesting. I don't know why. Maybe because showing the venue kind of shows your level, you know, because this is a tiny venue. It only is 100 people or a couple hundred people, or this is a bigger venue. This, you know, those kinds of things. I don't know. Touring is just not the same, even for major acts nowadays. It's just not the same. You see all these major acts that are, you know, like we can't cash flow it. we can't cash flow it. And that was the thing for years that just kept them going, because the record sales dropped. The streaming, who sees that money but Spotify, right? I mean, it's insane. It's insane. But bands used to tour like this. They used to just be on the road, and they could play those smaller places like Johnson City and Yakima, and I mean, even I'm here in Florida. You could say maybe let me say California instead, because yeah, let me say California instead. You could play Santa Monica, you could play Hollywood, you can play Anaheim, you could play San Bernardino. That's all just right there. All of that is all right there. That's like, it's right there. And the Valley, you know, whatever. Pomona. And then San Diego's right there. Anyways, so that makes sense. And these are not major places, you know, like maybe a major city would be a more major place, and these smaller places would be smaller places, but you're just trying to play to places, and you're trying to play often. You're not just like trying to take days off. You're trying to play as much as possible in front of as many people as possible in as short a period of time as you can. And it's insane that they just got on a tour just like that. I mean, they had representation. You know, they had a manager. They got a record deal. People are touring. You get on a tour. Yeah, we'll open. Yeah, we'll make nothing. Or next to nothing. Just living expenses, that's it. You know, living expenses meaning gas and hotel. And that's that. Yeah, these guys are getting advances already. All that's got to be paid back. All of it. Right? I mean, I'm sure maybe hopefully they'll talk about maybe some of that, but I mean, how long did it take them to get in the black? Like, after what record was it? 2112? Past that? Maybe past that? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe hopefully they'll talk about that. That would be cool. Okay, very cool. Awesome. All right, we're heading into part 3. Catch you then.